Okay, so one of the things we want to do is I want to go ahead and change this so that I know that this is page 1. This is page 2. Let's get rid of all this. And this is page 3. The next thing I want to do now is I'm going to add right above page 2 or page 1. I'm going to actually come in here and make this page 1 audio. And this is where this little keyframe here is where you're going to put your audio for this page. It's important that you read how to add audio, and remember that you're going to have to put a stop action on this audio when you move to the next page. What's missing right now is our navigation, and if you go back and you look, I want you to go back and look at the other projects and figure out what their navigation looked like. An arrow pointed to the right obviously means forward, an arrow pointed to the back means back. You're probably going to want some navigation like a home button, which will take you back to the main menu. You're going to want a pause button or a stop sound button so that you can stop the sound or so that the user can stop the sound. Okay, so there should be at least 3 buttons, if not 4 or 5, because the other button you might want is a quit button. You want to give them the option to move forward, move back, pause. Okay, because remember, they're going to, in fact, you don't even have to do the pause. You can do a sound off button and then a quit button. You want to give them the option to do those things. So there's 4 buttons right there that you need to think about. And once you've gotten this all laid out, we'll talk about how to do buttons and how to insert buttons. And hopefully, maybe by the midweek or the end of this week, I'll put a button tutorial up for you to read. I know we're starting to get to the end, and there's a lot here, so I want you to really look at these tutorials, because we've got 4 or 5 more weeks and then we're done with the semester. So we're at week 12 and we've got 7 more weeks, so we should be okay. So don't panic, but what I want you to do is to make sure that you realize that you're going to need to figure out what you want your navigation to look like. Okay, on page 2 I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to insert a layer and I'm going to say page 2 audio. And I'm going to do the same thing for page 3. And you'll do it for every page. And what you want to do in page 2 is right where page 2 is, you want to insert a blank keyframe. And that's where you're going to put the audio where you had, I'm sorry, let's go ahead and insert a frame there. You want to go ahead and put this keyframe right there. And then right here you want to do the same thing. And make sure that with page 3 you've added that and made that page. Oops. Three audio as well. Okay. And then you want to make sure that this keyframe right here goes, oops, is right there. Okay. So what you're doing is you're wanting to put a keyframe over the page so that you can insert your audio there. You're going to insert your audio just like you did for your ocean scene when you went to insert your audio, which were the seagulls and all of that. The next thing you're going to do here is to make sure that you have another blank keyframe, because what we want is we're just going to put the audio in that keyframe and then it's going to stop here. It has to stop here, so you're going to want to make sure that you read the program or read the tutorial on how to stop your audio. The other thing you want to do is I want you to click here and add another frame and move it all the way down to the bottom, and this is going to be your navigation layer. Your navigation layer is going to be seen throughout the whole book. That's never going to go off, so that is going to go right here in your first keyframes. It will not change. You want your navigation to be right here on this so that it's seen on every layer. Now the other thing is, because it's on the bottom, you're going to want to move it all the way to the top so that it is always seen. We don't want to run into any problems, and let me show you. I'm going to go ahead and just throw a button or a circle right here. That button let's say that that's our forward button or our back button, or in fact think of this as the stop button, okay, because red means stop. If I were to throw this navigation on the bottom, you're not going to see it. So you want to remember that your navigation layer is always the last layer on top. And what you'll do is program this to be a generic button, and this is the reason that, let me go back here to page 3, I just realized I need to insert a blank keyframe here. What we have is that button is seen on every scene. So we have page 1, page 2, page 3. The programming for this button is going to be easy. We're going to treat this as action scripting, and we're going to say that we want this button to go forward. We want it to advance to the next scene, go to and play. Okay, so, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute, but what I want you to do right now is to look at this and know that you need this button. Also, notice I've got some white lines around here. I'm going to need to come in here and make sure that my project, and I'm covered all my stage. These are kind of some of those things that as you go through you want to make sure that you look at that. Notice I've got the same problem here, so I'm just going to kind of come in and go out. And I'm going to do the same thing on this layer, make sure that the whole project is closed. Okay, I'm going to fit in window. Okay, or let's do this, show frame, so that we have the whole view of the frame right here in our window. Here's my button, and this button, it has to be on every single layer. Okay. Okay, so we've made that circle a button. Remember, we created the circle, we went to modify, convert to button, or convert to symbol, we clicked at a button, and we called it the forward button. The next thing we need to do now is we need to program that button. So one of the things we want to do is we want to say on, oops, let's type it. How come I'm not getting my little thing here? Let's try again. Select. I know no action is selected. So I'm going to go to a global function. I'm going to go to timeline. I can go to and play, but I really don't want to do any of those. Let's see. Why can't I? Okay, here we go. I hit script assist. Okay, so we're going to type on release, because we don't want it to be on the press, because as soon as I press it, it's going to take me, it's going to jump. What I want it to do is when I release it, I want it to happen. So I'm going to say on release, and then I'm going to open up my program code. I'm going to hit enter twice and then backspace so I can close my coding, and then right here is where I'm going to put it's going to do what I tell it to do. So on release, we're telling the button, because we have all the button properties, we're going to say on release, we want it to do something, and here's what we want it to do. We want to say next frame, and then close the parentheses and end the code. What we're telling the button to do is on that release, we want it to jump to the next frame. So remember, as we scrub the timeline right here, the next frame takes us to that page, then that page, then that page, if we had them. The other thing that I need to do right off the bat is I need to put a stop action. Now I can have a stop action right here on this frame, or I can put a action script layer on there and put it on the first frame there, so it really doesn't matter. But what I need to do is select this frame, and I need to put my stop action, and I need to go in and put a stop. Okay, and I just want to go ahead and go stop. That allows this movie to come up first, and we're going to test this scene. I'm going to show you in a minute. We're going to go to test scene. My output window comes up in case I've made any mistakes. Here's my you can see that this is my button because I get my little finger rub. I hit click and it takes me to the next scene. I hit click again, it takes me to the next scene, and I hit click again and it takes me to my empty scene. And I'll keep going. I can click this 50 times and what'll happen is it'll get to the 50th frame and end there. When you're setting your movie up, okay, on this last frame, whatever if you're at frame 17 or you're frame whatever, that last frame, let's pretend that this layer right here is layer 17. Page 17. You want to, on this last frame here, and let's say this is our keyframe, we want to make sure that that frame has a stop action. Because what we don't want this to do is we don't want it to go and continue to jump and loop. Okay, so we put a stop action there so it stops everything. So once we're done, it goes all the way through the book and it stops. The reason we're doing this is we're advancing, when we put the button on here, we're going to be advancing this piece by piece by piece. Now, this is the forward button. If I had a reverse button, I would do the exact same thing. I would go next, previous instead though. So this programming here would be on released, next, previous. Okay, so it wouldn't be this. It would be something like, we would go previous. Okay, or you'll notice that if we go in here, global functions, timeline control, previous frame is what we would put in there. We're going to go ahead and take that out. So now what happens is this. So let's say I'm now in this frame here. I'm going to test. The problem is I'm going to have a tough time testing this because it's not going to be active yet. And that's the other thing. When we put our navigation in, when you put your forward, you'll always have your forward button first. You're not going to have a previous button in your navigation until you get past the first frame. So you're not going to have a previous button here. You're going to have a previous button here. So let's do that. I'm going to grab this forward button. I'm going to bring it out here. In fact, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to just click off. I want to change the color of this real quick and see if I can do that, if it'll let me change that color. And that's what I was afraid of. It's not going to do that. But let's do this. I'm going to go back to scene 2. Here's my previous button. And in this case, on my previous, I have two choices. I can add another layer and put previous navigation. Okay. I'm going to go ahead here, and that's exactly what I'm going to do, actually. I'm going to click on this, hit previous nav. Okay. And I'm going to click it and insert that button. Insert keyframe here. And I'm going to click this, hit X. I'm going to go here, hit edit, paste in place. I'm going to move this over. Okay, so now watch what happens. I have my forward button and my previous button right there. So when I go to program this button, this is where I'm going to put in on release. Okay, and remember we're going to open that program. And in here I'm going to say, go to my timeline controls, previous frame. You'll notice that we had previous scenes. You use that in your menu. When you go to jump to your menu, when you make your main scene, you'll go and use that on your main scene. But for right now, I'm going to show you how this one's going to work. So let's do this. I'm going to test my scene. And, well, I keep hating when that pops up. Here's my forward button. Oh, you know what? We forgot to change the programming on that. Let's go back. I'm going to click on that. And we don't want previous frame. We want what? Next. So we want next frame. Okay? I'm going to close that. go back to controls, test the scene. Here we are, moving forward. Here's my previous scene. It takes me back to the first where there's no nav. I move forward. I can go back. So as you can see, what we've done is we've programmed the previous scene, the previous button or the back button, and the forward button. So this allows us to go in and look at, navigate the book. And that's really our primary thing that we want to do this time, is to navigate the book, moving it forward and moving it back. There are some instructions on how to stop the sound. You want to make sure, remember, that you're putting your sound in the frame above it. You're going to put a stop action on that sound, because if you don't, what's going to happen when you click the button to go to your next scene? Okay, let's do this, because this is, go ahead and enable simple buttons. If I click on that, okay, if I'm having something read to me here, all this text is going to be read to me. I move forward. I want to make sure that I've stopped the audio from the last frame so that it doesn't continue forward into this frame and play over this audio. So you're going to want to read on how to stop the audio from continuing in the frame forward. If it gets to be too confusing for everybody, what I'm going to do is go ahead and make a tutorial for you. I hope this helps you out on how to set up your frames and advance your movie. So remember, you're going to create a new scene. And these are our scenes. Let me go to our scene window, because we want to make sure we see our, where is that? Scene. We can rename these. So this is scene 1, and we want to call this color book. And this is scene 2, and this is storybook. These are not necessarily order of importance, because one of the other things we're going to do, remember, is we're going to insert another scene, and this is going to be our main page. Okay, this is going to be the place where we have our intro come in and our main navigation comes in, where we have the user is allowed now to pick whether they want to have the story read to them, whether they want to play in the color book, whether they want to do the drag and drop exercise, put a puzzle together, do different things. Okay, so this is, again, one of those times when we're going to be allowing the user basically the ultimate control. Also, the main page should move up to the top, because you want that to be the first thing that gets seen. Okay, but you can work within each one of these so that as you start, you can just navigate between these two and play around. And now you're starting to actually build your project. Don't forget to save this as your last name _ final project. If you need any help, give me a call.